Great. So this week on Discovery Plus, we watched what was it? Children of the Cult, which is about the Children of God cult.
Which is now the Family International because it's still going.
There's still a place. Let me tell you, it was a hard watch. It was 5 hours long. I read the description. I thought it was going to be like really interesting. So I put it on there. I started watching it and I was like, this is extremely, like, it was so good. It was so interesting, but like very triggering.
Trigger City.
Yeah. Like you can't, if you get easily like triggered by abuse of children, sexual abuse in general, anything like, and even just like the cults, like even just the cult, like seeing how it gradually progressed was also just like, it was very eye-opening to me about like how cults operate.
I liked how they interviewed people that were adults during it, that were like, I saw these things and it felt like it was wrong, but I had been so conditioned and, it just gradually, taught us that it was okay. So it was like, but I guess it's okay, even though I knew deep down it wasn't, it was, I like that they interviewed the people too.
I did too.
So that you get to see like from the abuser's point of view, even though I don't think those were any that actually, raped any children, but that were there when they were being abused. Just
they were saying one of the things they would have the children dancing naked on camera, and so that was one of the things that people were like, we didn't think anything of it. Like they told us like, oh, if you have an issue with this child just being naked, then you have a flaw. Right. It's not that there's doing anything wrong here. And that was how they convinced them, because they were like, oh, well, like, I don't want to like be a pervert. So maybe it is just me making up my mind. But like,
and I understand that viewpoint, because like, although neither of my kids go around naked, Sagan, like as soon as he comes home from school, his pants come off like immediately. Yeah. He does not like his pants on. And I had a brother who was naked until he started kindergarten. Like he hated to wear clothes, but nobody was videoing them.
Yeah, like that's where the line
is. The
like,
weird part.
Yeah, so like they said, they're like, there's nothing wrong with nudity, which there's not. There's nothing wrong with nudity,
but there is when you're videoing it and sending it to someone.
Yeah, when you're videoing it, and then some of the girls said too, they would be in a room with a bunch of men touching themselves and asked to dance, and it was like, okay, there's the line. Like it's not just that like it was a bunch of kids that just didn't like wearing clothes. It was that they were forced to dance in rooms naked or on video. So it was such an,
in addition to actually being physically molested and raped.
Yeah, they were also
not just dancing.
There was actually one of the more interesting things I didn't know, because I didn't know that much about Children of God before this documentary. I did not know that like the man that created it, in charge of it, whatever, he late in life decided that there was nothing wrong with awakening a child's like sexuality. And they said this specifically happened after his mother died. So obviously it was something like with his own childhood trauma, and once his mother died, like something.
Well, no, he had a babysitter or nanny or something that.
Well, they said too, like, yes, she molested, the nanny molested him, but then when he would touch himself, his mother would make him feel shame over it. Yeah. And he didn't want children to grow up feeling the shame around their bodies and masturbating. And
I totally support that.
Yeah.
But not awakening their sexuality. It's more like when your kid comes with a question, you're like, there's nothing wrong with that, but it's something you do in private, alone, where nobody else is around.
Yeah.
And don't talk to me about it.
What he started doing was he had a woman who was not the child's mother, like not related to him at all, start molesting his son at like 2-3 years old.
Yeah, it's really creepy.
He released a book. Basically, he had her record like everything, And then he
there were
released
pictures and everything in it.
Yeah. And then he released it to his congregation of like, this is okay to do. It is okay to do this to children. You should be doing this to children. And like, and they specifically said as early as 2-3 years old. And you were like, oh my God.
No.
And the way that the cult originally started, it was really cute. Like, it was just, and I can see how all these people like got into it. They said that essentially it was just peace and love. You know, all of the people were in these like super structured lives, and like their parents were, you know, just really harsh and everything. And this cult was like, come be with us. We're happy. We're in love. We're doing all of this stuff. And originally they all really liked it. They were all really happy. Nobody had complaints. And then out of nowhere, they decided, we're not going to have family units anymore. Everybody is now everybody's partner. And they, which again, not an issue until they had a sharing schedule. So it wasn't like, I like this person likes me, I'm going to engage with this person. It was literally like
consciously choosing.
Yeah, this was, you have to sleep with this person on this day and nobody gets left out. And that's super creepy.
Yeah.
And then they said that they were like having orgies in full view of the children.
Yeah, like made the children go to them.
Yeah, there was a part where they said that they were required to go to the orgies as well. One of the girls was saying that like she was swimming in one side of the pool and like the leader of the cult was having sex with every single woman on the other side of the pool. Yeah. And it was like, oh my God, like how traumatizing.
Yeah.
But
it was really tough to watch.
Yeah.
My talking with my mouth full. It's my thing.
And they didn't realize either that there was anything wrong with it. Like even the kids, a lot of them didn't like it, but something that really struck me was a lot of them said they were like, we didn't choose this. Like their parents, they all chose to join this cult. The kids were born into it and they were like homeschooled and shipped around the country to all these different places and like all this stuff and like
around the world.
Yeah, that's what I meant, around the world, because they had locations in like
at one point there was like 25,000 members, and I think like 15,000 were children and 10,000 were like adults.
Yeah. There was one point too where it said, I think it was like in the late 90s or something, or maybe the early 2000s, that they had 7,000 children and 12,000 adults. And I'm like, I think
the opposite.
Yeah, no, it was 12,000 members, but 7,000 of them were children under 18. And I was like, that's crazy that there was just so many of them. And like, the whole thing was creepy. Like they had no media, no contact with the outside world. They were homeschooled. And like a lot of the parents were not adults. They would get, they would join the cult at like 16. They said that like, it was a school function. Like these people would go to schools and be like, come join us, you know, be in this religion. It's super great. And they would like leave school and go. So like they're not super educated. Now they're having babies. And then the kids are just like growing up in this and they don't know anything else. And then
some of their propaganda videos were like, one was where, you know, where you don't go to the supermarket because
I like that
there's bad men there. Like,
and you're like, there's bad men here.
They're worse here than they are there.
Yeah.
Like, there's not much that could happen to you that could be worse than what you get here. So
one of the more famous members of Children of God was the Phoenix family, Joaquin and River. And they used the death of River Phoenix to scare all of their members into staying. Because the Phoenix family left and then River Phoenix got into drugs and ended up dying. And so then they took that and they were like, see, if you leave this cult, you'll be on drugs and then you'll just die.
Yeah.
And they had, and I liked the people that they had that they were interviewing. They were all different. So they all had like different stories of how they grew up. One of them was in like the poorest of the poor, of the children of God, because you always want to think that like they're all happy and like the sunny green beaches and everything, but no, she didn't. She's like, there was like 12 of us in one room. It was, miserable. They didn't care about us at all. Hers was really sad because she said her father abused her from the time that she was 4 years old. And when she reported him as an adult, she said that she felt a lot of guilt about it because even though he had abused her from the time that she was 4, he was also the only person that ever said that he loved her and showed any type of affection towards her at all. And that was just like heartbreaking. It was awful. And then they also had one of the founders' grandsons who was on there. He was only a little bit. And then they had a girl that was one of the more prominent members. Her family was like in charge of their singing group. They made their own media. So she like sang on camera and she would sing at events. And they're like, see, we're happy. And as she grew up, she would do more things with the media side of it. And then eventually she was invited to go and live at the founder's house and like be a part of that. And so it was interesting to see like how all of these different people functioned in here and what their experiences were. But like none of them were good. She talked about how her sister and her mother left, and her sister wanted to talk to her when she filed a lawsuit. Her sister filed a lawsuit saying that she, was abused by children of God. And she was like, talk to my sister, my sister's in there. And she tried to talk to her, and the cult was basically like, you're not allowed to be honest. Like, you have to, this is what you have to say. And like, it was so sad. Like, cause she basically was like, I just went and said, that was not my experience. I have a great
didn't she refuse? She refused to testify.
Yes.
So she signed a paper, like a testimony,
and then they still wanted her to talk about it. And she's like, no, because I don't want to lie. And I don't want to say it, and it was such an interesting turn of events, like all the people leaving, and that there really hasn't been any justice. There's been a little.
I looked it up. I looked up the cult on Facebook because they have their own Facebook page still.
Of course they do.
There's like 7,000 people in there that follow or like their page.
Well, I imagine a lot of them just like want to see what's happening, like just them looking news. When the founder died, I think it was still like they didn't really admit it right away, and then they were expecting his son.
And there was after he died, I think some of the stuff came out and they're like, oh no, we've changed, we're not doing this. And it was like the second version of it or something, but then it still ended up being the exact same. Like that one girl said whenever she, supposedly things had changed and she moved to the woman's house.
Yeah.
And then it was like, this hasn't changed at all. Like,
yeah, because when the founder died, his wife took over, his second wife took over. And she was, less about child abuse, but she also didn't come out right and say like, hey, we're not abusing children anymore. Everybody go ahead and knock that nonsense off. Just like, it kind of seemed like they just didn't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they expected her son, who was the one that was abused, to take over for the founder. And he was like, no, I'm literally leaving. Like,
like, no, I don't want any part of this.
His story was so sad. Another thing that really stood out to me in this about what a monster this woman was that her son killed himself. So he'd been being abused since he was 2 years old. When he was 18 or something, he left. He actually committed murder, and he murdered the woman who abused him. And then he killed himself. And the statement that the Children of God cult put out was basically like, this, he had a mental break after he left. If he had stayed, it would have been fine. This was all because of drugs after he left, and we play no part in it.
It's the same thing with the river thing. Like,
and
he used it as propaganda to scare people into staying.
yeah, and she basically was, and then she said he went to heaven, even though he committed murder and then killed himself, which are both sins in the eyes of the Lord. She said he still went to heaven. And I was like, that's interesting that like it wasn't his fault and he still went to heaven and nobody said anything about it. And so it's just really weird. And very cold on the part of his own mother to just be like, well, bye.
Oh, well.
Yeah.
That's just like, even all the way up to the top, like they're all brainwashed.
Yeah.
That's what that tells me.
Yeah. And they had tons. I was shocked at the amount of documentation that this documentary had. And I don't know if they were like legitimate things that like somehow came to light or if they were just like
Probably from
recreating
former
some of
members.
these people's memories. Huh?
Probably from former members.
Yeah. But I can't imagine when you leave that they let you take stuff with you.
I can't imagine that you leave and you get to just leave. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I think that they let
escape.
you leave on the assumption that you like will come back. So it's kind of like, what are you going to do? Because they said a lot of the people ended up going to drugs or prostitution because they had no education, no skills, no like way to be in the world. But then also you had the one girl who said that she literally did like have to escape in the middle of the night. She's like, they would send the kids out to do fundraising. And so I guess maybe some of the information was real because they did have like pamphlets and stuff that they like gave to other people to like recruit members. But she would keep some of the money and she kept enough to buy a bus ticket. And then she said that she stole a key. She left in the middle of the night, like, and she just like was terrified the whole time. But she had a family to go back to. So she actually was doing pretty well because she went to her maternal grandmother. But I mean, a lot of the people didn't have families to go to.
No, they were born in that. They literally didn't know anything else.
One of the lawsuits was a grandmother who was not in the cult who was suing for custody of her grandchild who was in the cult because of abuse, and they ended up winning because they couldn't prove that there was abuse happening because nobody would come forward and say like there's abuse happening.
Well, and the thing is when that's all that they know, they don't even feel like there's any abuse happening.
No, they just think it's normal.
Just if they think that the other people are the bad ones, you know.
Yeah. Well, not only that too, but they also scared them. They were like, well, yeah, this is bad here, but it's going to be worse out there.
Yeah.
So then
and you won't have your family or anyone that you know around you.
Yeah. So it's all the devil that you know, not the devil that you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a rough one. It's definitely worth the watch. Like 100% worth the watch. But you have to have a strong stomach and you have to have something to watch after because it ends and you're just like, I can't believe that no justice has happened.
No, and a lot of it was statute of limitations, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Like for the adults now that grew up in that as kids, it's been too long, so they can't do anything about it. Which is, crimes against children should not have any sort of statute of limitations, period. Like it should just.
I agree. Well, and I also think there were 2 other lawsuits filed for abuse. And one of them, the dude got 240 hours of community service.
Yeah.
And you were like, community service? Are you joking? Like, and the other one, the guy did get, I think he got like 160 years in prison. But I think they said those are the only 2 people who've been brought to justice for abuse from that cult. So 2 people out of, a
thousands.
Yeah, thousands. And it's because they can't prove it. It's because the survivors don't want to come forward. It's just awful. And just like, I don't,
and
I hate
the fact it's still around.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
what?
The one girl, so the girl that was in the music section, and then she ended up getting the job to work for the founder's wife. She said when she had a daughter, she wanted to leave. She didn't want her daughter growing up in this. And the founder's wife, who was now the like leader at the time, she wouldn't let her leave on the grounds of, well, you know where we are, so you can't leave. She was able to leave, but it was because they were leaving and they go, well, now you won't know where we're going, so now you're free to leave.
Yeah.
And she like took her daughter and like left and like reconnected with her like family who had left the cult before, but her dad is still in the cult. And she got a letter of apology from one of the people who abused her, and it was like a super long letter that was like, you know, you're not crazy, this did happen, we're so sorry. Or he said like, I'm so sorry this happened to you.
Yeah.
And she sent the letter, she said, to her dad and said, this is how you apologize to a person for the abuse that they suffered in their childhood.
It was really tough to watch.
It was. And it was 5 hours long. Like, I actually stopped for a bit in the middle, and I ended up going back to my apartment, and it's on Discovery Plus, which I can only watch in my bedroom on my Fire Stick. But I had ordered a Fire Stick for my living room because I knew I had to watch this, and I was like, I can't watch this in bed. Like, to sit here in the dark in my bedroom, like watching this, it will be like, I'll go into like a catatonic coma for like 3 days from grief. So like, you know, plan a dinner with friends afterwards, go for a walk
to take your mind off of it.
Yeah. But yeah, like the religious part of it too, just everything was just, you know, God will hate you if you don't let this happen to you.
I mean, that's the basis of religion.
I know. And that's why I think I have such an issue with religion, because like you have this God who's supposed to love you unconditionally, but then also like he's not going to love you
exactly what he wants you to do. You're going to hell.
Yeah.
But that's not unconditional. So
yeah. And then, you know, you give up all of your worldly possessions, and there's no reason that you should have to give up your worldly possessions. Like all of these, you know, the big mega churches and the cults, like people do, they sign over their houses to them. They sign over everything that they own. And then something, if they ever come to their senses and like the bubble bursts for them, they have nothing.
Yeah.
And it's sad. And I don't think that there's many support groups. The survivors of this have created a support group for other people to like discuss what happened to them and help them get out and help them function in the outside world. But I mean, that was recent. Like that wasn't something that existed. This cult's been around since the 60s, I think. And like only recently are people like helping these individuals.
The entire thing is so insane, from the religious aspect to the orgies. Like, it's just like, what?
They had a cartoon too. They had their own comic book, and it was called, I think, Heaven Girl.
Yeah, where she gets gang raped.
Yeah,
and this is for children, mind you.
Yeah, and that was how
she was doing it to make God happy.
Like what they yeah,
to try to convert these horrible gang members.
They did that to get members as well in the 70s. They did stop the practice, but they called it like something fishing. But they basically told the women, go out and have sex with men and get them to come back and join us. And it was like, what? Like just the backwardsness of like, we're sex positive, we're body positive, we're doing all this, but also you have no control over your body or what you do with it. Like so weird. And like you said, like they're doing it so slowly that you just don't even realize. And then when you do, you're made to feel like you're crazy. Just that classic gaslighting of like, we're not wrong.
to be honest, and this is totally a slippery slope here, like that I'm, but the Trump supporters that stormed the Capitol, who are patriots and super America and super, you know, all about the United States, storming the Capitol of the United States. It really reminds me of that. Like how these people, there's no way in hell that they would have done that 5 years ago. Like they would have never, ever, you know, violated the United States that way. And then here they are storming the Capitol, going in there, you know, tearing stuff down and, you know, destroying things. Like, it was that gradual brainwashing that happens. And it really made me think of that. I mean, just as far as something that everybody knows about and has literally watched happen, you know?
Yeah. Well, and they said too, with the insurrection, the fallout from it, when Biden was actually like inaugurated, when Trump didn't swoop in and was actually like, I want to say crowned, but that's not the word. But like he wasn't made president again. I've seen a couple different articles of people who like that bubble burst for them, and they like they were now like seeing the consequences, seeing what happened. They felt stupid, they felt lied to, they felt just like shame. And like it kind of sucks too, because a lot of people don't feel sympathy for them, but you really have to.
But it's at that point, it's a mental disorder because they've been brainwashed.
Yeah, like they really genuinely believe this with their whole heart. And there's nothing, and there's still people that did it. Even as recent as August 13th was supposed to be the next big day that that Trump was supposed to take office, which something similar with the Children of God. This was originally a doomsday cult. So originally the world was supposed to end in 1993, and this was, you know, be with us, we're going to be, you know, with God, we are doing all of these things for God, we are pure, the world's going to end. And then the world didn't end. And it's that same thing where like you do have to have a level of sympathy. Now, like the child abusers and the people who facilitated and just let it happen, is it okay? No. And they absolutely should be punished, but they should be punished and also get the counseling that they deserve, because this was something that can happen to anybody. And people that are going through a tough time in their life are particularly susceptible to it. You know, if you are stressed, if you are, you know, suicidal and just not doing well mentally, anything that kind of gives you that hope, you're willing to try. And then you just get too far into it and you don't know how to live any other way.
Yeah.
And so like, yeah, I hope that that more people after this come forward and, you know, that they get counseling and that they like talk about their experiences. Cause I didn't know a lot about this, and I absolutely should have known a lot about this, because the only way that you can not let these things happen is to know about them. And and they're happening all over. I mean, there's cults. They say Scientology is a cult.
I was about to say Scientology.
Yeah, Scientology. They had the, I don't remember who it was, but I know it's the Jonestown murder, suicide. It was the one where they drank, the one where they drank the Kool-Aid and a bunch of people died. And like, I think like a couple people, actually, I watched something recently on that. There was a couple people who were like out on errands who like came back to see it. And they were like, I was visiting family and I came back and there was a bunch of dead bodies and like everybody had done this. But like these cults are so dangerous. All of these people literally killed themselves because they were told to. And I think that one, though, I think they thought it was a drill. They made them do drills.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think they told them this is also a drill. And then
it's because they were being invaded. Like they were about to suffer legal trouble. Like the government was showing up and they were going to be in a lot of trouble. So I watched the documentary on that too.
Yeah.
But it's been a a minute, so
Yeah.
in a couple months, I think.
But yeah, like all of the cults, they get dangerous. I don't think that there's any type of regulation. Like this one specifically, they were off the grid. One of the big issues with prosecuting anybody in it, they can't find them. And also, they all go by different names. None of them have legal names. None of them have like lived there. I think one of the people that actually did get prosecuted for this, he had like 6 or 7 different names that he went by. That people were like, this is what I called him. That's definitely him based on the picture, but like, everybody called him something different.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's pretty much it about this one. Definitely watch it. Know about it for sure.
Yeah. I mean, just to be aware of how that stuff works so that you don't end up one of those people. Like, you never know. I mean, when you're being brainwashed, obviously you don't realize that it's happening, or you wouldn't be in that situation.
I mean, I saw the movie Midsummer and I watched it and I went, that looks like a pretty fun cult. And even when it started getting super weird, I was still like, you know what? They do a lot of nice things. So, like, yeah, you kill yourself when you reach 72, but also,
That's my favorite number.
Yeah. They had, I don't know if
That's
you
probably
ever
the cult
saw
for
it.
me then.
It was a good cult. And like, you get to be a flower princess and put your boyfriend inside a bear suit and burn him alive, I think. It was a great movie.
I see nothing bad here so far.
No, with that one too, what they did was they had stages of your life. So like I think it was the first 18 years you lived there, you were a kid, you did whatever. The next 18 years or up to 18 years, you got to go and live your life. So you went to college, you got a job, you worked in the world, you did whatever you want. And then you came back at some point, and then you spent the next like 18 years working for the community and just like being a part of it and like taking care of the children and cooking the food and doing all these things. And then the last 18, you were an old person. You got to like relax and enjoy it and do all these things. And then when you, on your 72nd birthday, you went up to a giant cliff and all of the community was at the bottom, just like watching, and you just jumped on right off it. And hopefully it killed you. If it didn't, you had to do it again. Yeah.
You wouldn't be able to walk up there.
I think one person like they just left you to, like, both of his legs were broken, so they just left him to like
just die there.
Die in peace.
I don't think that would be peace.
But like, they also did drugs and they did a lot of massages and they, had sex with each other and it looked super fun. And, it's just, I could be a part of a cult like that. But, but they didn't do weird things with children. So that's the line.
See, okay then. There's nothing bad with this one.
Yeah.
I would rather take a pill and die from that. I don't want to have to jump off a cliff, but tie a bungee to me, tell me I'm bungee jumping, but it not be attached to anything. So I think that it's a wonderful thing.
No, it's like a ceremony. They were excited to do it. Like, you're excited because the meaning
lived a good, long, happy life. Yay, I'm done.
Exactly it. They said once you're 72, you are no longer of use to society, and you should be happy to kill yourself and let other people prosper. So like, they felt fulfilled in their lives and then jumped off a cliff willingly.
I mean,
yeah.
I disagree with it, but I mean, because like I would want my grandmother to do that.
Yeah.
Like, she fulfills needs for me.
But if you were in the society, you would be okay with it. That's the thing. Yeah. Like, looking from the outside, you're like, no, I want them to live past that. But in the society, it's like nobody lives past that, except for obviously the leaders, because they are above all rules.
So I just have to be a leader.
Yes. You can raise up the ranks really quick.
Yeah,
And then
I do. I do
another,
that, don't I?
yeah,
I
like
don't even
another
try. I just
another
happen.
recent cult that I don't know that much about was the Nexium cult, which had it was like this rich trust fund billionaire who
People
started
for
it. Huh?
indigestion. Nobody there has indigestion. The
Yeah.
Nexium is, I think, like an indigestion medication.
Oh, that'd be nice. I'd join that. I would love to never have indigestion. But they got Allison Mack from Smallville. She was she's an actress, and she was like the second in command at this cult, and she didn't think anything of it, but they would literally like brand women and like, yeah, they literally like hot branded women with like the cult's insignia, and they were a sex cult too. Like they would like human traffic and they would do all of these things, and they did eventually get caught. And like he was charged and like, put in jail, and she got jail time too, I believe. But she was also like seen as like they took a little bit of pity on her because she was very clearly brainwashed. And it's just that brainwashing of just like you always have to be just on guard, like all the time. If something seems too nice, it is. Get out.
I mean, I'm that way. If I'm super nice to someone and I don't ever tell you the truth and give you the brutal, harsh realities, then I'm probably being fake nice.
Yeah.
And I'm just luring you into a false sense of security.
Yeah. Like there's no time. If anybody ever asks you to give up all of your possessions, just leave.
Yeah.
Like, and they said too,
No.
they said that they took their passports. So like you're very limited there as well. Because you don't really have ID.
They would send them to other countries and then take their passports from them.
Yeah, they would like take the passport, give it to them, and then so it was like even if you left, like how are you supposed to get a new one if you have no form of ID and really no footprint in the world? I think one of the things that they did was they got caught the first time because this woman said the police came and they checked it out and they didn't see any abuse. And as they were leaving, she yelled out, "These children don't go to school." And the police like turned around and like went back and they were like, "Nope, that's illegal." But they still like didn't have enough to shut them down, and like everybody just like picked up and left. So like having so many resources, so many people, so many like places, it just I can see why they have such an issue with cults. And I really like there should be a dedicated task force. And I'm sure that there is actually just monitoring all of the cults that are in the world.
Yeah. But anyways, yet again, we're gonna finish this.
Yeah, like one of these times it'll
worth
be the
the
real
watch,
finish.
unless you have severe PTSD or something from some sort of abuse. You may not want to watch it, but if you can stomach it, it's a good watch, for awareness and just
the first two episodes are the most kind of graphic.
Yeah.
If you do have those, type of triggers, and you still want to watch it, I would suggest skipping the first two episodes, starting kind of with the end ones. Yeah. And if you feel okay after that, maybe circle back.
Right.
But I texted Lindsay after the second one and I was like, this is hard. And I remember feeling physically tired watching it because of just like how draining it was to watch.
But yeah, Children of the Cult on Discovery Plus was our show this week. If you've watched it, let us know what you think. What impressions you got, and just your thoughts on that.
All right. Bye.
Bye.